Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, College Football UK, and well, I am your host, Fletch, and as ever, I am joined by numerous stunning co-hosts. I have Nick, I have Egg, and I have Sam. Gentlemen, how are we?
Good.
Very well.
Yep, good.
So it's a very rare thing being in a group with a Patriots and a Browns fan. But all four of us are coming off the back of NFL wins, at least this week, which is good news.
Let's
I'm
go
sure.
Browns.
It's got us all in good spirits. I would hope.
I like to think we helped you out as well, Fletch, with your division. So
Absolutely did, and I am forever grateful for you for it. Now we've just got another one at the weekend to get through in Green Bay. But before we get properly going, I do want to throw home. I'm going to keep throwing this back every week. We have a lot of fantastic listeners to this episode, especially on the audio side of it. We do get quite the number. It doesn't reflect necessarily on the visual side of it on YouTube, but the number we do get every week is fantastic. And we're very, very appreciative of everybody who tunes in every week to this podcast to listen to just a few of us British guys waffle some absolute rubbish about college football. We would love to chat with you more, though. And it'd be great to see you all turning up on our social media. Go into the links in our description, follow the AAW Network on social media. But also, we have a Discord channel now. There will be some exclusive, in the Discord, you get a chance to chat with us. We'll be doing some college football watch parties. We're doing some great things in there, but also exclusive updates on the network, on various, and we'll be doing, look, I'm going to throw this out there now. I have got some ideas for some giveaways towards the end of the season and some little communal-based things for people who are in our Discord towards the end of the season that are going to be exclusive to the Discord. It'd be great to have you. With that waffle out the way, have we got any news to start us off? Nick, you are our newscaster most weeks.
West Virginia have sacked defensive coordinator Jordan Leslie. I assume because he's crap. I don't know for certain.
Yeah.
Inside linebackers coach, and I'm going to pronounce this really carefully, Jeff Coombs is to take over defensive coordinator duties.
Yes.
The college football playoff have announced that it is almost inevitable that rematches from this season will occur in the playoffs. They do not plan to adjust rankings to avoid rematches. So, Sam's Texas have got the chance to lose to Georgia again or lose to whoever, But
well, we can't lose to Michigan again, so that's all right.
Oh, that's true.
Do we know?
Why are we catching the strays there? Why are we catching the strays?
Do we know if Northern Illinois have made it to the college football playoffs?
They haven't made it yet.
You'll be all right then, mate. You'll be fine tomorrow.
We'll be all right, yeah.
Egg, I think what we should start doing is just throwing stuff until we get our way during the game.
We won the big boy playoffs. It doesn't matter what happens in the future now.
Anyway, sorry, Nick. Carry on.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. I went there. I apologise. Something that does interest you boys. Despite a commitment to play for LSU, 5-star QB recruit Bryce Underwood is being tempted by Michigan, and apparently he's willing to commit to them should they meet the $5 million NIL package that LSU have offered him. Now, I assume that that's in line with the fact that Tuttle's just retired and you need a QB. So
we needed one anyway.
And Dave Portnoy, who is the founder of Barstool Sports, has pledged $3 million towards NIL fund for a QB next season.
Right. You only need to find two then.
$2 million. That's all we need.
That'll go fund me.
Yeah, Jack Tutt retired on health grounds, suffered his 5th concussion at the weekend. So, I believe he wants to get into coaching. So, and so finally, who made history this weekend? Anybody? I know Ag said he had a quiz question, but quick one. Anybody who made history this weekend?
Sam Houston.
Not who I was looking for, but
Kennesaw State.
Not who I was looking for. Travis Hunter made history this weekend by being the first player in the Big 12 to win the weekly performance award on both the offense and the defense in the same season in the same week.
Flipping heck.
There you go. Another award for his many talents.
That dual threat danger is gonna. Are we gonna start seeing that in the NFL? That's what I want to see.
Then
I want to see him used on both sides of the ball in one.
I
Just in
don't
one
think
game,
the
just for
NFL
the
are
fun
going
of
to
it.
do that, though. I don't think any team's going to. They might
But-
use him like on the odd occasion, but I can't see him playing regularly on both sides of the ball.
I can imagine someone like imagine if he went somewhere like, it won't happen, but somewhere like the Lions. There is a guarantee that they'll use him in some sort of weird play where he'll either be throwing the ball or catching the ball or doing some fucking screenplay that just no one would ever think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's what would happen if he went to the Lions. But he'll get used. I think he'll get used like in a few trick plays every now and then, but he's going to be a cornerback, isn't he?
So believe me, this will come up later in the episode. So
I don't
save
know
some of
whether
them.
he will, because obviously, if you look at the average pay of, say the top 5 wide receivers against the average pay of the top 5 cornerbacks, it's like half the amount. If he can play wide receiver, surely he would choose to play wide receiver because he'll get paid more money.
The only thing is, I think that he wants to be the number one paid guy in his position. I don't think he'll get it at wide receiver. He will get it at cornerback.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the cornerback position, I think at the moment it was 28.1 million, which is Jalen Ramsey at the moment in terms of per year. But I know that Pat Surtain has recently got a lower yearly salary, but he got a higher overall package. I think his was like 84 million or something. So I think it'll probably be something along those lines. So it's not exactly too far off a wide receiver, but I think if he wants to, I think he's got more chance of succeeding personally as a cornerback and being the number one earner in his position at cornerback than he has at wide receiver.
I just hope Vegas draft him and just have him as a punter
Or a kick returner.
or kick
Really
returner. Yeah,
random.
just that's something the Browns would do. We'll draft him. We'll just have him like kicking field goals or long snapper or something like that.
Please save some of this because this will come up later in the episode. So save some of it, please.
That's the end of the news anyway. There you go.
Is it? Well,
that was my news.
I believe someone has brought forward. Oh, did you have something?
Yeah, the FCS, but I'll go after Sam. Sorry.
Okay. I do believe that somewhere like it's made its all the way over to college football. We have a helmet headline. Well, to be fair, we've had helmet headlines from college before, but somehow they've been given on our NFL podcast. I don't know how that's ended up happening. Sam, we have a helmet headline, and the floor is yours, my friend. The floor is yours.
It's was it yesterday or the day before? Tennessee decided to release a very nerdy video. I put it in the chat and we spoke about it, and it seems like I on a podcast with 3 other people who aren't nerds, which is disappointing. But they did a Venom-esque video to release their almost all black kit with obviously a bit of orange on it. So Tennessee have now going to release that. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I am a big fan of sort of black uniforms with a little bit of like pop of color. I do think that this is gonna. I don't know if they're all riding on the coattails of a particular team that decided to release theirs at the start of the season. But yeah, I really liked it, and I like the fact that they used the Venom element to it, which is obviously from the Marvel universe. It's probably the reason why they've done it is because the new Venom film is out very, very soon. So it's probably a little plug to that as well.
Smart marketing. Smart marketing. They do look nice though. I've got them up here again, and not the biggest orange guy. I'm not gonna lie, but I would definitely wear a jersey like that. They are very, very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of orange. Obviously, not necessarily a bright orange, or more of a burnt orange
Burnt
guy,
orange.
but if you know if the Longhorns want to produce a black kit with a bit of burnt orange on, I'm all for it.
Well, listen, if we're all for, like, listen, my favorite style of clothing is free. So if they ever wanted to just send one over, we'd wear it.
Oh yeah, obviously, yeah.
Like that's my favorite of food is food. Sorry, is free as well. So you know, things like that. If it's free, I'll have it. Egg, FCS news, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, if you also like funny videos and marketing, Western Kentucky release a lot of different like jerseys throughout the season. Their socials are really good as well, and their mascot is like iconic. Go Big Red. Just to go off on a tangent, they did one with the eyes of the mascot
Yes.
and the helmets recently as well. So if you're looking for a group of 5 team to follow on socials, they're my recommendation. FCS obviously is the big time football. Don't listen to my other 3 co-presenters. It's where the football is. We have a playoff in FCS. We've had it for years with 10 teams. We don't do 12 because that's just madness. The committee gets to release one top 10 before Selection Sunday, which is the 24th of November. That came out literally just before we started recording. Unsurprisingly, North Dakota State, who are a powerhouse of FCS football, are ranked number 1. Montana State is 2nd, and South Dakota State a 3rd. I'm not going to go through the full 10. I'm deeply traumatized because New Hampshire aren't in it because we're 4-4, and apparently you have to be 6-2 at least to get in. So happy that FCS have done this, but also slightly upset that New Hampshire are CAC again.
I mean, well, it was all when you dipped off before, because all we could talk about was North Dakota State and why they deserve to be in. That's all we could talk about. I mean, Nick had some very specific thoughts on it, and he was very, very much all for it, weren't you, Nick?
Some of these teams could be future Mountain West or Pac-12 teams as well, because they got the stadiums, they got the fan base. It's just the money to move up to FBS. So,
wonder if they'll maybe replace Kennesaw then.
Yeah.
I know Fletch isn't particularly happy with that.
Nope.
Smallest stadium in college.
Is that like the 3rd stray somehow I've managed to catch this episode? Like, why? Do you know what, Sam? I've never been anything but nice to you. Ever.
They're the only Owls that haven't lost to UConn this season, though. So fair play to Kennesaw for that, mainly because they haven't played UConn, but they're the only Owls not to lose to them.
I'll take it. I will take it. End of the day. With that in mind, we've got a couple of little topics that I wanted to bring to you today. And first, don't know why my torch is on my phone. The first one I wanted to bring forward was a tweet that we saw before. And I posted it into the group chat. We've had a little look. A message appeared and disappeared. We don't know where that came from. In the group chat. And I wanted to ask you about this. So, Anthony, I'm going to preface this by reading the tweet. Anthony Richardson is 22, benched. Bryce Young is 23, benched. Trey Lance is 24, benched. Justin Fields is 25, benched. Now you see where I'm going with this, but I'll Will Levis, 25. Zach Wilson, 25. Mac Jones, 26. Kenny Pickett, 26. The NFL has a QB development problem. Now, my question to you, gentlemen, is does it? Does the NFL have a QB development problem? Or, which someone else has asked this question, does college football have a QB preparedness problem? Maybe possibly the worst way of wording that.
Preparation problem.
Preparation problem. Yeah, QB prep problem.
No, word it the other way. I prefer that way.
So what are your thoughts on this? Because there is a clear.
If I may quote the legend that is Rodney Harrison, who you can find on NBC and Peacock. He was on PFT with Mike Florio last week, or it might have been the week before. But funnily enough, they were talking about QBs and drafted QBs. And Rodney Harrison was saying about how when you look sort of 20 years ago, the aspect of that you didn't get many brand new QBs going straight in to start. A lot of them spent the first year either redshirted or at least as the backup, and to learn behind a seasoned pro or someone who's experienced. And you've just got the, in the last 10 years, say, you've had this influx of like new college QBs that are suddenly going straight in. And what Rodney Harrison was saying is that anybody who's anybody, whether you're the team picking number 1 or team picking number 32, you shouldn't be looking at throwing your QB in at the deep end, because effectively you're putting him under so much pressure straight off that it doesn't help either his long-term prospects or your long-term prospects, or effectively the investment that you're making in the QB himself. So I don't know whether the fact that you've got all those QBs that are now being benched were all QBs that pretty much started, either a year, 2 years ago, whatever it was, and just haven't been able to sort of sit in the background and develop quietly. I'm not going to say correctly, because I don't know, it's not for me to say what is right and what is wrong. But I think when you look at, say, the transition of playing a new QB over the last 20 years, I think that's probably got something to do with it.
I do kind of agree with that, and I mean, I had a quick look at. I'll go through what I actually looked at a bit. I'll let you sort of chat first, because I do think Tom Brady sort of made an emphasis on a very similar thing around the fact that, from what he was saying, is that even like the playbooks and everything at that NFL level, especially more for the newer QBs, has been simplified a lot, because they are trying to throw them in and playing straight away. Now, obviously, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how more simplified they are, but if you're having to simplify a playbook to be able to allow a rookie to basically be thrown in at the deep end, that is essentially not allowing them to develop, because you're not giving them the chance to understand how NFL football works as a quarterback. And with it being arguably the most important position, one of the most important positions on the field, in terms of essentially you're the one that has to make the plays and understand things and potentially be that leader on the field, to then have to be thrown in and do it without any sort of seniority around you can be quite daunting, especially as these higher picks are going to teams that are crap, or have the teams aren't as good. So it's like, I mean, throwing Bryce Young in the Panthers when he doesn't have an O-line, he had what they just lost a wide receiver in DJ Moore, and he ended up getting Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, and he didn't even now he doesn't even have Deontay Johnson anymore. So it's like there's so many pieces which he just then doesn't have, that he can't then work with in order to be able to develop properly. And again, I think at the time, I mean, he's now been replaced by Andy Dalton. It's like, well, had they have had Andy Dalton last year and allowed him to sit behind him and understand the game and develop his knowledge and understanding of reads and things like that, which is what most QBs have to learn making that step up, I think that's where the issue, for me, that's where the issue is. But I mean, I'll talk about the stuff.
You make a great point. You make a great point with Brady, actually, because when he was drafted, he was redshirted or the plan was to redshirt him for that first year, and then he only went into the backup role. It was only because of Drew Bledsoe's injury that Brady obviously got his chance. But initially, yes, he was picked low and whatever else, but he was initially destined for a red shirt and then only the backup role. And that's, I think it is a case of these QBs are being started too early.
Brady also didn't come into Michigan as day one starter. He also kind of went through the traditional route. He was behind the backup, and then the starter was awful, so they threw him in. it all boils down to, in the world of college, it all boils down to NIL, because before schools would recruit 2 or 3 years in advance or 5 years in advance and have that conveyor belt of quarterbacks to go through with NIL, it means that quarterbacks or players, if they move, they don't have to sit out a year like they used to traditionally. So there's no real strength or depth within a school, really. I've taken Texas out of it. There's not really a lot of depth at quarterback amongst pretty much all of the top powerhouse schools, really. Off the top of my head, you've seen how quarterbacks who are never going to make it to the NFL have gone to really big names like FSU. We've obviously had Tussle at Michigan, not throwing Tuttle under the bus. It didn't work out. I think we could have Tom Brady back playing quarterback for Michigan and we'd be awful. But it's not, the NIL hasn't helped with that, but the NIL also doesn't help with the development in all the sports in college. And it's like I said in the chat before I delete the message, it's not down to college coaching staff to develop players for the pros. They're there to win games for their school and to keep their jobs. If you don't keep a job in college, you're going to get fired relatively quickly. We've seen loads of coordinators get fired this week. It's the same in all of the sports. The difference between football and the NFL is when they're drafted from basketball, men's basketball starts soon, they will either go and play in the D League or they'll just get 2 or 3 minutes a night because they can rotate. Whereas in the NFL, they're obviously, it's more of a win now situation, which it wasn't 10, 15 years ago. Johnny Manziel was probably the biggest example of that. When he was drafted, it was the Browns were going to win the Super Bowl within 25 minutes, and it didn't work like that. It's probably a pretty bad example because he came with a lot of baggage, but it's not down to the college to develop quarterbacks, and unfortunately, not all quarterbacks are going to make it. That's the beauty and the bad side of the sport, isn't it? So it's a mute point. It's a mute point because you could say it for 101 different players in all of the leagues in America.
In terms of sort of that sort of leading on from that, and this is something that I did it without knowing before we obviously got mentioned that this was what we were looking at, or this was one of the questions. I went through the last 5 years of quarterbacks that have been drafted in the first and second round, and there were 22 teams have picked. There's only 3 that have double picked, which that's the Broncos, the Bears, and the Patriots. So just quickly going down that list, Cardinals was Murray in 2019. He's a starter. Was drafted first round pick overall. The Giants have Jones. He's still playing. The Broncos obviously have drafted Locke and Nix. Nix is now the starter, and I think he's pretty much solidified as being the starter for the rest of this year. Burrow was a starter. A lot of these are the ones that come straight out of college and become starters. So Burrow was a starter. He's still there. Tua he wasn't a starter when he first went to the Dolphins. He was benched for half a season and then had to come in because I think Ryan Fitzpatrick was basically just crap. The Chargers had obviously drafted Herbert. He started his first season. Eagles, same thing with Hurts. Lawrence with the Jaguars. Wilson with the Jets. I mean, most of you look at out of the 22 teams, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 8 quarterbacks that have been drafted in the last 5 years that weren't introduced as a starting quarterback in the NFL in their rookie year. And that was Locke, Tua, although he ended up starting, Love, Lance, May. May wasn't initially meant to, but obviously he's now starting. Trask, who's basically just never played. Penix has been benched, and then obviously McCarthy we don't know because he got that injury.
Well, he was named as the starter for the season, wasn't he? Just before the preseason, I think he was actually he was meant to be starting.
But I think when they drafted him, when they went into preseason, they were saying they weren't going to play him, and then he basically turned up in preseason and played better than Sam Darnold. So they then decided he was going to start, and then he got the injury. But I mean, even if you look at the other 10 teams that weren't in that list, like the Lions obviously have Goff, who was drafted in the first round and started in his rookie year. The Rams have Stafford, who the Lions drafted. And did he start in his rookie year?
Stafford.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the 0-16 year. We weren't
Yeah.
going to start anybody else
Well,
that next year.
he obviously has started in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Ravens, Jackson, I'm pretty sure he started in his rookie year. Browns is obviously Deshaun Watson. He was drafted at Houston. He started in his rookie year. Allen started in his. Prescott in his. Geno Smith weirdly was drafted in the first round and did start was actually named as the starter for whoever he got drafted by, which I can't remember now. But Geno Smith was technically named the starter. And then Derek Carr was obviously the starter in the Raiders. So, I mean, there's plenty of quarterbacks who have been brought in the first, second round and have been named the starter and are still may not necessarily be with the team that signed them, but they were still starters and they still are regular starters now.
Yeah.
So I think
go on, carry on.
I just think that it's more of just a case of that we seem to be focusing so much on the few recent players that have had issues with starting, and I get that there are a few issues, especially maybe more recently. But I think, as been pointed out, we seem to have a much greater influx of quarterbacks being picked very early. And again, it's that going back to that idea that, well, if you're going to be picking them early, they're going to have to start because your team isn't good enough. So that's why you're picking them so early. But at the same time, there are plenty of examples where quarterbacks have been picked early and have thrived. So it's I don't think it's necessarily a hard and fast rule as to whether it's bad development or that. I think there is an element of bad development at the NFL level, but as Eggs mentioned, it's all about win now. Yeah. So you need these star quarterbacks coming out of college.
It's the environment that you put in.
Yeah.
I'd be quite interested to see of that list of people, the quarterbacks that were benched, how many of them were drafted as juniors as opposed to seniors? Because is it a case that some players are being drafted too early? They shouldn't be being drafted as juniors. They should be drafted as seniors. Is there, you can't, I don't know whether you can just say, right, we're only going to draft seniors and right. I mean, you take someone like Penix, right? He's not only a senior, but he's done over grad work as well, to the fact that he's nearly 42. But, you get some of the guys who are coming in at 21. So are we as the NFL as an entity, are they drafting too early? Should they be drafting seniors, not juniors?
Then there is that does take apart the argument, because Kenny Pickett was granted an extra year of eligibility because of COVID and was selected by the Steelers. He's currently at the Eagles. He was actually a senior, but obviously had an extra year of eligibility for COVID. I'm just looking through the quarterbacks the last few years.
I was like, Cam Rising, he's way overdue his shot now, then, isn't he?
And Kenny Pickett's 26 as well, so I don't know when he was drafted. 22, sorry. So you'd have been 24.
Let me ask you this. This is, I know that at the end of the day, what's the ultimate goal of playing in the NFL?
Money.
Like for the Cleveland Browns.
Winners. Aside from that one, is win the Super Bowl. Yeah. Who was the last quarterback to start? Wait, how do I word this properly? The last quarterback to win it, who was a starter for the team from day one. The team that they won it for the team that drafted them, and they were a starter from day one.
Russell Wilson.
I believe that would be the case, and that was in 2014. Well,
he was at Oregon. He was at Oregon, then went to the Seahawks, and he won it straight off the bat.
2013 season, right? Because let's look at the let's go back. Chiefs won it the last two times, obviously.
Mahomes sat behind Smith.
Mahomes sat behind Smith. The year before, the last team to win it that weren't the Chiefs were the Rams. Yes, Stafford was a day one starter, but he was drafted by Detroit, won it for the Rams. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won it with Tom Brady, who was a Patriot.
It was behind Briscoe.
What was it? But he that's not even the team that drafted him. Before that, it was the Chiefs. Same story. Patriots, they won it with Brady, who again there you go.
Drafted, but he was sat
drafted,
behind.
but sat for a year. The Eagles won it, but it was Nick Foles who was the quarterback. Everyone knows the Philly special, and not only. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Apologies. I have PTSD with that Super Bowl. Sorry.
Now Nick Foles was drafted by the Eagles. He was also traded to the Eagles, bounced around the league, came back to the Eagles, not even as a starter because Carson Wentz started that season. So actually, well, maybe can you not claim that? I don't think so. I think it helps prove my point. And then you got Patriots, the Broncos, Peyton Manning drafted by the Colts, the Patriots, and then you get to the Seahawks. Most QB, like every QB since the last 11 were either sat behind someone or went to another team to win it. Did not win it with the team that drafted them. So
it's like this year, isn't it? It's the Lions are going to win it, but it's with Goff, and obviously Goff was drafted by us. So
how weird would that? I want to know if that has ever actually happened, in where QBs have swapped and then one's won it. They both won it with the team that they swapped with. That would be an interesting one to find out, actually.
Both have been. Was Stafford first overall pick?
First overall pick, yeah.
And so was Goff. So 2 first overall picks swapped teams and won it with the Super Bowl with the other team. Probably would be a first.
That probably. But and I think I've said this for a while. The two greatest QBs the two last generational QB, truly generational, have been Mahomes and Brady, both of which sat for a year. But one thing, the point I kind of want to get to is, I think it's already been kind of mentioned, but the QBs I think we look at most anyway are the ones who are drafted in the first and second rounds, especially earlier in the first rounds. They're the ones you're looking at as the generational ones. They're the ones you're looking at as the ones who are hopefully going to change the franchise round. But the worst thing is, if you're being picked first in the top 5 overall, especially, you are going to one of the top 5 worst situations to go to in the National Football League. Everyone thought it was going to be different this year with Caleb Williams because, well, the Bears weren't the worst team in the league. The Panthers are. They just had the Panthers' first round pick that just so happened to be the first overall pick. Even took them a minute because the Bears totally forgot that while it's great to give a team, give your quarterback weapons, you've still got to protect him and make sure he's not on his ass. But there's also that thing, I think, again, where you're sending them, most of these quarterbacks that we're looking at, to bad situations. And that's the cut and dry of it. I think you're sending a lot of quarterbacks to bad situations, and you look at, I don't know, Trevor Lawrence. How many head coaches has he been under now? Urban Meyer and Doug Peterson.
And probably going to be a third soon, realistically.
Soon. Bryce Young has already had 2 head coaches. Yep. He's not even halfway through his second year.
Fields has had 2.
Tyler
Murray's had 2. He had what's his face before the guy they've got now.
But with respect on that one, how many head coaches has Patrick Mahomes had?
1.
How many head coaches did Brady have? Oh, until he was like 93 and went to the Bucs.
Yes, he had 1. I think the difference is that both Mahomes and Brady have had arguably the best coach in the league as their head coach.
Yeah.
At the time.
Well, yeah, there is that. And obviously, well, much like if the Chiefs do win it this year, much like most of Brady's, the defense will carry him to it and he'll just get him over the line, is what it is. Sorry, Nick, I had to throw.
You know the age thing was thrown into this tweet as well.
Yeah.
Go massively off track. Do you know who the oldest player ever taken in the first round is?
No, I have heard this, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
It was Brandon Weeden by my beloved Cleveland Browns. This is the first season I was a Cleveland Browns fan. He was 28 years old. He played professional baseball. He was selected by the Yankees, then went and played college football and was CAC. So therefore, the age thing is completely irrelevant here. Like you could be like 106 years old. So I don't know why he's put the age on this tweet.
I think he's trying. I think the reason why he's pointing it out is the fact that he's trying to show that. I'm assuming he's trying to show that maybe he is trying to show that is the fact that it doesn't matter what age they're coming out of college. It's the fact that they're a quarterback and they are getting benched. I do think some of them are quite harsh though, because like has Will Levis officially been benched? I'm pretty sure he's injured. I don't think he's been benched. So I think it's a bit harsh to say he's been benched, but
Unless he's saying like we should select like Jacob DeGrom like in the next
Has
draft, like I don't know.
Is it injured like Devante Adams' hamstring?
maybe. I don't know.
The one that miraculously repaired itself on a flight to New York? That kind of injury, or
That's possible. That does happen.
they do happen.
That does happen. Yeah.
I think it's such a. I think with quarterbacks, I think it's different with a lot of other positions. I think with quarterbacks, my reasoning behind why they seem to pick them so, like they pick them up and they think that they're going to be the next thing, is because the quarterback is essentially the money maker. Realistically, he's the guy that if you were to name a player in most teams, if you didn't know football, you probably like if you ask someone, who do you know that's an American footballer? Tom Brady, quarterback. Who do you know now? Patrick Mahomes. The only one maybe different at the moment is Travis Kelce because of the link with Taylor Swift. It's probably the only difference at the moment. But
Is he going over Taylor Swift?
or you've got maybe like Josh Allen with Haley Steinfeld. That's maybe the other link. But in most cases, people know of all the players, they know the quarterback first.
Yeah.
And that they are the star. They are the starmen. They, as most people say, they are the franchise players that they are looking at. So realistically, they need to be in the team. And if you're drafting them as high as you are, the amount of money you're going to pay them coming out of that first rookie contract, they are going to have to perform. And if they don't, you've got to find someone else to then change it. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the Panthers element of just constantly drafting top 5 picks every single year.
So
I mean, well,
would you ever go on, Fletch? Go on.
I was gonna say just that cycle. Can I just say that Egg and I personally are just happy to have someone else in that cycle too. We went through it for long enough.
What do you mean we've gone through it ever since we come back in 1998? I
know, but I'm just saying
we've basically gone through the entire population of like a small like island nation at quarterback at this point.
I guess what I'm saying is we were glad that someone else is doing it instead of us, and you're glad for the new company in that position. So
yeah,
I think it's more where I was at there. Sorry, go on, Nick.
I was just going to say, there are some aspects, like we talk about, like Bryce Young put in an environment that he was never going to succeed in. You know, Mac Jones was put in an environment at the Patriots that, was never going to be beneficial. Again, you look at Drake May this year, and I raved all year about don't play him because you're just going to get him hurt or injured or damage his development because he's got nothing in front of him. And that all goes to the fact that obviously you're drafting QBs higher because you're not good enough. But if you were a GM, would you even consider wasting a pick on a QB like that? Because I don't think if I was a GM, I'd ever consider a first rounder on a QB. Because if you're high enough to be picking a QB first round, you're not good enough to protect him or give him weapons to be successful. So I don't think I'd even. If it's different if you put all the pieces in place so that you've got everything but your QB, and then if you want to spend your entire draft capital to move from there to get the guy, great, brilliant, do it that way. But until you're ready to protect him and give him the weapons he needs to succeed, all you're doing is putting him on a hide into nothing.
I think the one interesting situation, and then maybe I think there's a couple this year where I think there was the potential for it to really work, and that's obviously Michael Penix Jr. being picked by the Falcons, who basically has been told from the off, you're going to be sitting behind Kirk Cousins. I think there was talk that he's even not going to play for the pretty much the whole entirety of his rookie contract, which and I think that's based upon the fact that Kirk Cousins has a long contract. But there is that, which I think is a very interesting situation in Atlanta in how they're going to work with that. The other one I think was interesting was JJ McCarthy in the Vikings. Obviously, we didn't get to see it, but the Vikings O line is pretty decent. It's not terrible. It's not amazing, but it's solid, and he has the weapons to use. He has Jordan Addison. He has Jefferson. He has Hawkinson. Like, he has weapons around him. And then they brought in Aaron Jones, who is a great running back to have as a rookie quarterback. So I think there are two situations there where building the team around them, drafting a few picks or trading for those picks and getting lucky with having them higher than probably what you expected. A bit like what the Lions did with the trade with Matthew Stafford, getting those picks where you probably didn't expect to be getting a top 5 pick from us and ended up
No,
getting
we did
that.
not.
So there are just individual situations where things like that can happen. Whereas if you play your cards right, you could draft a good quarterback in a good situation. The problem is that you get off, in most cases, you get what Bryce Young has, or you get what, trying to think of another example that's similar to that, but
Mac Jones had.
Yeah, Mac Jones is another one, or maybe to a certain degree, Trevor Lawrence is another one. They've never really been great,
No.
and that O line has never been particularly good. And again, the defense is one of the worst I've ever seen play. So there are situations like that where I think Trevor Lawrence has great quality. I think he's a very good quarterback, but I think the situation that he's in is just so messy because he can never get. And I think that's hampered his career in the NFL because of the fact that he basically went in his rookie year, was made that he was going to be the face of the NFL. He was going to be the face of the NFL UK, and basically got slapped around for 15 games in his first season.
He got drafted. He got drafted unbeaten. He never lost. He never lost a game in college football. What does that teach him in college? What is he learned by not losing a game? What is he learning in college that's preparing him for the NFL?
If you lose and you got someone that's good at reading signs.
What not to do? What not to do in the NFL? Or what doesn't happen in the NFL?
So,
I mean,
sorry, go
on, Sam.
I was just saying, I think there are aspects to the arguments that the NFL doesn't develop its quarterbacks well. I don't think it's a crisis because there are plenty of examples where it's worked. Your Joe Burrows, those sort of top players who are still. I mean, even probably one of the best examples I could think of, and this is where he got benched, is Jordan Love. I think everyone thought he was going to be absolutely dreadful, and he's actually turned out quite well. But there are plenty of situations where someone has been drafted high and has started in their rookie year and is still playing at a high level and performing at a high level. The problem is that I think that there's been a bit of I think it's the culture, I think, in the NFL of we must win now or we're stuffed. And I do think there's that, like we've mentioned, with that college element of we're not here to develop players. We're here to win games and churn out results and get from A to B. But I do think that there is potentially, I think there is more that could be done on both sides in order to help these players who are expected to go into NFL teams and be playing from day dot. I also think there needs to be more accountability of NFL hierarchies to be able to say we need to not ruin players before they can get anywhere. It's just the problem is that money is such a big driver in the NFL that if you're going to be paying a brand new quarterback straight out of college, putting him on a £25 million deal, you're going to want some return on that. And it's always going to be this problem of balancing paying someone to playing them to developing them and all of that. So
I think one of the best things. Sorry, Egg. Is look, we spoke early on. I don't know how much of that the first episode we ever recorded, Sam. You remember? But the only thing I think the only couple of things I remember are reminding everyone I was lazy and you saying about how like everyone's gonna be sick of our voices. But Gary went on and we spoke about some of the things that are different between the NFL and college football and the way the game's played. And you look at Gary was talking about things like just how much wildcat is run in college football. We were talking about Caleb Williams not long later in a clip that ended up putting on the socials where you were talking about how he had 6 seconds to in the pocket to be able to throw, and I was never going to even. You could be damn lucky to get 3. I think most quarterbacks at the moment are lucky to get 2.5 seconds in the pocket. One of the things I think there's to a certain level, there are not a lot of teams that are running NFL pro-ready offenses necessarily in college football.
yeah, there's a lot of RPOs in college, and that's started to bleed into the NFL, I find.
Yeah, I don't want to hit the Tom Brady homer and play the boomer card of no one knows how to read defenses anymore. They just don't know how to do it. But I do think maybe to a certain level there's a bit of truth to that. I've given my feelings on Jalen Hurts, and how I felt that not Travis Kelce, sorry, Jason Kelce was propping up a lot of Jalen Hurts' career for quite a while in him being the one to read the defense. I think there's a bit of that, but I'm looking at a lot of some of the best situations is either you get put into a genuinely good coaching situation, which is very difficult because I think there are a lot of okay coaches in the NFL. There are some very good coaches in the NFL, but your Sean McVays, your Andy Reid's, your Bill Belichick's, there are very few coaches, and I think I would go throughout there Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, etc., who would be genuinely a very good place to go to develop a quarterback, to develop yourself offensively, and to coach players and develop players. I don't think there's a lot of them in the NFL. And you go into a situation where you are in a genuinely good situation. Now, if you're in a genuinely good situation, you're probably not getting drafted early. You aren't that good in college. And there's just a lot of different things that I think need to work. And my kind of final point on this for myself was I want to go back to mentioning the age. I don't think it's a thing of turning around and saying the older you get, the better you're going to be in the NFL. I think it's to turn around and say that the NFL has already given up on these QBs and half of them aren't even 25 years old. There are QBs there who have barely been able to drink for a year and have already been given up on. So there's the development side of it, but there's also just how quickly they are giving up on these quarterbacks. And like I said, I think some of it comes down to being pro ready. And I do think there's I'm not saying it's an obligation of colleges to do it, but there are colleges who aren't getting the players pro ready. I'm not saying that's their obligation to do so. There are NFL teams who don't have the ability to develop and put good situations in and around QBs. But some of the best things I think you're seeing at the moment is even the QBs that are doing well, who start from day dot, they're always paired with a quarterback who's had a lot like good longevity in the career.
The only thing that I would say with that about the fact that there's a lot of situations where maybe NFL teams are thinking we need to play this guy right now because we need to get the turnaround. To a certain degree, is that not just bad for planning? Because there are plenty of like experienced quarterbacks like your Ryan Tannehills, and obviously some retired, but like your Carson Wentz, the ones that are there's a fair few who have decent enough experience that if you think about the way that your team wants to look in maybe 2-3 years, if you say, well, why don't we sign a veteran, play him for a couple of years, and have that element of foreplanning. Now, I get that the idea is because it's a win now situation, coaches are under that much pressure that they've got to be able to turn a franchise round in the blink of an eye. But surely your best situations are where GMs recognize that things aren't just a simple fix.
Yeah.
Like the Lions, for example. no disrespect to the Lions. The Lions were shocking for years. And
How dare you?
and I think when they brought in Dan Campbell, and Dan Campbell didn't turn it around straight away. He was making great plays. He was making interesting plays. He was changing things up. But you were still losing games in those first year or so. They could have easily got rid of him and tried to start again. But what they did was they thought, no, they future planned. They thought about, well, we're not going to do well this year. Maybe in a couple of years' time, when we start building a team and allow him to actually develop players around him and allow them to produce a team.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at a team that is arguably the NFC's favorite for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I want to say it's an interesting conversation. I think there are a lot of different avenues that we can go on and potentially we could look into in the offseason, especially as we look to the draft. It's going to be interesting. I did drop a little bit of news in our little kind of in Zoom chat that the real OSU, Oklahoma State, have dropped their own black and slightly orange uniforms. I put them in the WhatsApp group chat. Have you seen them?
No. Is
They are
it Oregon State we're talking about?
Oklahoma State. Oh, hang on, where's it?
Oh, not. I have to have a look at this without any sound.
That's why it's been a bit weird. That's the wrong bloody camera.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's awful.
There we go. I'm going to switch my proper camera.
They've ruined it. They've ruined black kits for me.
My bloody
No, that's not
background.
true.
Right, I'm going to turn off my background for 1 second. I'm sorry, you're all going to see me and my wife's coats and stuff again for a minute. There you go. Thanks, Egg. If you are on video, have a look at the screen now. If not, well, I'll share it onto the AAW stuff. That's disgusting.
Before you watch that, go get those. You know those glasses like you put on so that you don't look directly at the sun during the eclipse. Go get those because that is officially a war crime. Before we go back to talking about like proper college, like proper football, not the NFL stuff, do you know one quarterback that is going to make it into the Hall of Fame and is going to make it in the NFL and should be picked right now?
Shadar Sanders, obviously.
No, and not enough people are talking about this man. I am talking about the son of John Pat, which is actually Greengrocers in North Devon, but probably not the same person. John Pat and Megan Pickles' son. That is John Patrick Pickles II, who is the third choice quarterback for the UTEP Miners. He's played one game for UTEP and they won.
Put him in the Hall of Fame now. He doesn't even need an NFL career.
And in a couple of weeks' time, we have UTEP against Kennesaw, which means we're going to see Pickles against an Owl.
Pickles against an Owl. No, I love that.
Geez, they're hideous. Sorry, I've got them on the big screen there, and it's
you know the arms bit, with the ridiculous orange lines.
Yeah.
Is that just an undertop that someone's decided to throw with the kit, or is that part of it? Because whoever told him to wear that's an idiot.
No, because it's the socks too.
Oh, they've gone with the hoopy socks. Not
the first comment under the tweet is, "Please fire someone."
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it just, where you just think they've looked at those black kits and gone, "Oh, should we do our own?" And then whoever's designed it has just gone, "Yeah, it's just not right, is it?" We'll give it to him anyway.
The comments is, yes, to honour all those serving at Oklahoma State University's football program.
So, what's the bet that they went to? I don't know. The university's graphic design course and said, "Have at it." Basically,
do you want to fail your degree?
And the athletics director has said, right, they're giving a little bit too much money here out of the budget to the graphics department. So we're going to choose the worst one as an advertisement for why the graphics department, why that course needs shutting down. Because that's horrendous. Something's gone wrong.
Well, especially when you compare it to the Tennessee one. Like, it just looks so bad. Everything about it's just
Right.
Honestly, if they're going to force their players to wear those stupid sleeves with the hoops on, then you may as well. Or I guarantee all of the players are going to probably refuse to wear them.
So it is a throwback to when Oklahoma State, before they become Oklahoma State, they were Oklahoma A&M because they were originally an agricultural college. So the hoops are the logo used to be an A with a circle on it. So the hoops are to signify the O for Oklahoma. And the orange is obviously their old color, and then the A fits in there somewhere because they've got different logos for it as well. So it does all fit together, but it does look.
The O now stands for "Oh no, how bad is that?"
Someone's put in the Sickos Discord, Oklahoma anarchists are mechanical.
Yeah, that's I'm sorry, I've got to close the tab. I can't do that.
Such a
or at
bad
least scroll
example
away.
for.
Am I
Um,
allowed to say that I quite like those?
No,
I mean,
It's
you
a
can
good
say it, but
It's a good
we
shade
won't
of orange.
I would lose the white bit. I'd lose the white bit on the sleeves,
on the shoulders.
on the shoulders, but I kind of like that. I like weird stuff like that.
But
So
any Friends fans, is that the bit where Rachel says, "Oh, lift it up, keep going, keep going. There you go. Now throw it away." That's what I imagine should be done with that kit. Just take it off,
so
throw it away.
I actually right. If you look at the jersey in and of itself, on its own, the jersey's quite nice because the jersey doesn't have the hoops going round.
Yeah, I like
The-
that.
In it reminds me a bit of, is it the Broncos uniform this year where they've got the weird shoulder thing going? No, they've got the one going over the top, isn't it? Like the little, I don't know. There's a couple of schools that a couple of I think NFL teams have a relatively similar design on the shoulders, and I don't like that bit personally. But the jersey in and of itself is not too bad. It's just the rest of it.
The hoops.
It's the hoops. Again, right, need to look away. So, second bit I wanted to chat to you is about today, which that has fully distracted me, is I believe it's Heisman winners. And I said that we could come back and talk a bit more about Travis Hunter later on, and I'm giving us that option now. So, we tweeted out today at the AAW Network the odds per Bet365 for the top 5 Heisman candidate favourites. In at number 5, at 18-1, is Cade Klubnik. In at number 4 is Ashton Genty at 17-4. In at number 3 is Travis Hunter. Well, kind of like a tied 2 is Travis Hunter and Cam Ward at 3-1. And then Dylan Gabriel at 13-5. I'm going to start by asking, do you agree with Dylan Gabriel at number 1?
No.
No. Nobody else want to weigh in on that one. Are we in agreement with Egg there?
Yeah.
You just asked a yes or no question, didn't you?
Who should be number 1, in your opinion? That isn't Mr. Pickles.
Oh,
Travis Hunter.
You think Travis Hunter? Does everybody else agree within that chat? I'm going to throw in a slight spanner.
I would probably say, based upon the performances that I've seen, I would probably say Ashton Genty. I think
He would be my number 2.
He's been steps above anyone else in his position. And he's been a game changer pretty much every single game. Although I did throw him a little bit of abuse for not making more than 150 yards last week. So
I remember saying, I think it was put in the Discord by our good friends over at Good Teams When Great Teams Cover, that he only got 125 yards, and it's really bad. You know someone's good when you see they got 125 yards and you think, is that it?
120 odd yards, and was it 2 touchdowns?
2 touchdowns.
1 touchdown. So that's just not good enough for a guy like him. He should be. I'd be expecting like 4 or 5 every single game.
The thing with me though with Ashton Genty is I've watched the amount of his snaps that I've watched, and I know Egg that you watch quite a bit of Boise State, and one of the reasons that you kind of had a bit more look at that group of 5 conference forwards was because of Boise State. I've watched a few of them. It's ridiculous just how stacked the box is against him. They know that Ashton Genty's going to run it. They're stacking 7, 8 in the box, and he still gets 20, 30 yards and a touchdown, etc. You just can't stop him. You just can't. And I think for me, when looking at who's the best player, when teams go that deep into into trying to solve you as a problem and they can't, that speaks volumes.
You know, he hasn't got the most rushing touchdowns in college football.
Who does?
Bryson Daly, who is the Army quarterback. He's got 19. Ashton Genty's only got 18. Only got 18.
Only 18.
Yeah, Jamal Williams has more rushing touchdowns in a season than Barry Sanders, but
I think they're both tied as well for the most touchdowns in D1. Yeah, they both got 19 touchdowns. Caleb Johnson,
Ashton has one through the air then.
Yeah, Caleb Johnson and Dylan Sampson have both got 17 at Iowa and Tennessee. So I would put Bryson Daly in for a Heisman, I think, based on what I've just said.
Well, I was going to give one that wasn't on the list. I had Hunter at 1 and Gentry at 2. I then had Gabriel at 3 and Cam Ward at 4. Now, the one I've got on my list that nobody has mentioned is Penn State QB Drew Allar.
Ooh.
He's my number 5. He's on my list at number 5. I just think when you look at how well Penn State have been going, and you look, he has been, what's the word? Involved and, involved in the plays. It's not a case of, just quick hand it off. A lot of their plays have gone through the QB. He's been performing well to the point that just because he doesn't get all the recognition doesn't mean he doesn't deserve it. So he was the one player that I had in my list that nobody mentioned. So I just thought I'd mention him.
I want to try. I'll get up the. There we go.
He's
Drew Allar is 50-1. I've got Drew Allar is 50-1 here, behind Shadar Sanders at 45-1.
Out of interest, who was the last non-quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy?
Was it one of the receivers from a few years ago? Wasn't it? Was it Devontae Smith?
I don't know. That was a genuine question.
Oh,
I didn't know.
If
I'm just
that
thinking
is the case, my trivia few weeks ago has fully paid off because I was on this page a lot.
Devonta Smith won it in 2020.
And who's won it before? And what's the next non-QB before that?
Derrick Henry in 2015.
So pretty much every 5 years we're looking at a non-QB wins it.
Mark Ingram in 2009. That's about it.
And then, just before, about 4 years before that, Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
So you're looking at pretty much every 5 years, a non-quarterback wins it. So actually, this year we are due a non-quarterback to win it.
Potentially, yeah. Do you know what?
When was the last time? Because I know that Travis Hunter is technically down as a dual QB wide receiver.
Yeah.
Just cornerback wide receiver.
Yeah.
When was the last time a defensive player won the Heisman? Because he would technically class as a defensive player, I suppose.
That is a great question.
To go back, to the Drew Allar thing, his stats last year actually were phenomenal. I'm surprised reading this that he wasn't. I don't think he was invited to New York, was he? But he got 25 touchdowns last year, only 2 interceptions. So far this season, he's got 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on a worse Penn State team, you could argue, in a harder conference.
Charles Woodson.
I was going to say only one player only one player has ever won the Heisman as a defensive player, and that is Charles Woodson in 1997.
What school did he go to?
Central or Western or Eastern Michigan. Any of them.
That's the one.
Any of them.
And what was his defensive position?
Cornerback.
Cornerback. So the only ever defensive player to win it has been a cornerback. So I was more just thinking, because obviously we talk about in normal NFL about the fact that the MVP is generally a quarterback. I wonder if that plays a part into the reason why certain players are picked for the Heisman, because the MVP has basically just become the QBVB.
Yeah.
So is the Heisman Trophy just essentially who's seen as the best QB in the league, unless there's someone who outstandingly performs a QB, all the QBs in that year.
Well, yeah. Actually, to be fair, as well, by the way, to Nick, what Nick said, there has been a linebacker who's won it, I believe, and a defensive end, two defensive ends who won it. You're talking like the 30s, so don't really count because they were playing with like the thinnest bit of leather on the head at that time. That's not real football. But I think to your point though as well, one thing I will say about running backs winning the Heisman, running backs win the Heisman when they break records. When a running back breaks a record, they get the Heisman. I think Reggie Bush was breaking records. Derrick Henry was breaking records. If Ashton Genty takes Barry Sanders' rushing record, which he's still, I think he's slightly fallen behind pace at this moment in time with the minimal 125 yards and 2 touchdowns he got the weekend, he could very well be in for it if he takes that record. Because I think you can't deny it, like a 30-year record. Take that from him. A 40-year record even, nearly.
I don't know if this has been mentioned, but for 10 years straight, from 1973 to 1983, every Heisman was won by a running back.
That's interesting.
Doug Flutie broke that. He won in 1984 as a QB.
So,
and then the year after that was Bo Jackson running back, and then it fluctuated between QBs, running backs, and wide receivers.
Right. So just tonight, before this episode gets released, before Vegas listens to this conversation and finds out all these statistics, get your bets in for Genty now. Because those odds are it's gonna be like 1 to 3 in the morning, by about 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So
I think if he can put up if he can put over 200 yards up and like 3, 4, 5 touchdowns at the weekend, if they're playing, I don't know if they're on a bye. If they're playing, then that he surely has to be back on track for breaking that record. I think even getting close to that 30-year record would be good enough.
Yeah. They have at the weekend San Diego State at home.
That sounds like a 300-yard game.
Yeah.
Then they got Nevada at home, on the road at San Jose State, on the road at Wyoming, and then at home to Oregon State as well. So that's who he's got to go against. And then it's interesting though, because I think before last weekend they did have a little look at who the Heisman favourites were, and I do believe Genty was third, and Gabriel and Cam Ward have been top 2 for quite a while, I've noticed in the voting, and especially when you generally do consider it a de facto MVP. A de facto QB award, very similar to the college version of the MVP, which has become in itself a de facto QB award. It is not surprising.
2012, 2013 was the first time in Heisman history that 2 freshmen won it back-to-back as well. The first time 2 freshmen won it, actually, as well. Johnny Manziel and Jameis Winston both went on to kill their careers playing for the Cleveland Browns.
Jameis might be turning that Browns team around.
I like it when I go down these rabbit holes. I just fall down these rabbit holes of just looking at like random things I never knew. Yale won the first 2 as well after Chicago won the first one.
To be
Yeah, he
fair,
won twice. TCU won the next one as well. There you go.
to be fair to Jameis Winston, his career was long gone before he was at the Browns.
He was ruining his life at the Saints when
he was. New Orleans was not kind to him.
In 1945 and 1946, two players who played for the Army won it as well, which kind of seems a bit, unfortunate. That does feel like that's staged a little bit.
Yeah, there's more to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it like when in 1945 when that was the last time that Army and Navy had started 6-0 each and hadn't lost for? And then it was just something I want to talk about in a minute, by the way, as we get
It
into
wasn't
our weekend.
one in
game.
1945 wasn't even drafted first overall. He was third.
Yeah, because I cracked that joke about the last time the Army and Navy were undefeated. The US went and got in a world war.
To be fair, they were on the way out of it at that point.
Well, that's
they'd won it. They'd won it. They'd already won the war.
They came in as that guy. If you ever see the meme of everyone's pushing like this pickup truck, and there's a guy stood on the pickup truck pushing the back window. They came in, they did that, and then went. Sorry to all our friends in the States, that was a joke. Talking though about Army and Navy and their fantastic start to the season, I want to look at towards the weekend's games that have just been. And I think we do need to start off with the absolutely un-American, but bordering on communist, demolishing that one team this week gave to such heroes. What were some of the words that we used in the group chat there, Egg?
Unfreedom like, I believe it was.
Communism.
Yeah, and because obviously we have a special relationship with America and their armed forces, you've actually also insulted your own country as well, and NATO.
Yeah.
And NATO. So I don't. Yeah.
So next time anyone wants to start trouble on our shores who's not getting help because of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, Notre Dame won at the weekend, by the way. Nick, how was the game?
Fuck yourselves. Both of you.
Wiley Leonard didn't throw an interception as well.
I know. Notre Dame, including last season, Notre Dame are now 10 out of 11. They've won 10 out of 11 games, including into last season. And, we're on a roll. So you can only beat who's in front of you.
It's a phrase that keeps popping up a lot on this podcast, isn't it? But you're absolutely right. And they didn't just beat them. That was at MetLife Stadium. I think, what is it? Riley Leonard scored more touchdowns in the first quarter at MetLife Stadium than Daniel Jones and whoever had in like 2 years. It was brilliant.
But I think, in all fairness, they shot themselves. Navy shot themselves in the foot because they gave away possession in that first quarter so easily. It was almost as if a bunch of guys off the street could have probably been competitive in that game. I don't know whether it was just the environment or whatever, but they just shat the bed and just gave up. You just kept giving the ball away, just kept giving short yardage, and it was easy.
Egg, did you?
No, it was just shooting yourself in the foot wouldn't really work in the Navy, would it? You have to shoot the bottom of the hull to sink. If you shot yourself in the foot, it wouldn't really matter, would it? You'd still be on the boat. What I would say to Navy is they haven't lost to a Group of 5 team yet this season, so fair play to Navy. I was also laughing at the plays on ESPN, but Nick obviously touched upon that of touchdown, fumble, missed field goal.
Yeah. So the
question I've got for Nick, actually, I did ask Sam this the week. Do you think that Notre Dame will make the playoffs? And if they do, how far do you think you'll go within them?
I do think we'll make the playoffs.
I agree as well. I think you will.
I think we should make the playoffs. I think it all depends on where the other teams finish as to who we're going to get. Based on how we are sort of performing, I think if we turn up and play competitive football, then I don't see why we can't be competitive against most teams. I would rule this out. I would rule out Oregon, Texas, Georgia. I would back Notre Dame to beat anybody but those three. Because we seem to be in this form. Like I said, you take the NIU result out, which I was, we've gone through this. I was so angry about that. But you include what went on late last year, and you just look at how the team has improved game by game. Yeah. They are on that roll to say that, we deserve to be where we are. We just keep going, and what will be, will be.
I mean, Purdue result aside, which was 66-7 to Notre Dame, straight after. Yeah. Obviously, well, every team at the end of the day, take the piss, but every team will have a banana skin game. There's a reason that Northern Illinois, etc., have that bone of that wall of bones. It's because those games happen. We've seen Vandy, Alabama, and all that sort of stuff. You look at every game they've played since. And I would agree, okay, I've not watched a ton of Notre Dame, but I have noticed every single week they have just continued. It's a better performance against a better performance against a better performance. Riley Leonard looked terrible at the start of the year. He's serviceable and has got continuously better. And that's all you can do. And look, at the end of the day, one of the things that we all know, again, you hit NFL playoff football, we talk about college football, playoff football. If you go in with momentum, good luck anyone else. And Georgia have shown that they are beatable this season. Maybe not the most beatable, but they've shown they are beatable. Texas, with all due respect, have shown they are beatable. Alabama has shown they are beatable. There are various schools that have shown they are beatable, apart from Oregon, obviously, and a couple of those that haven't been beaten yet. But if you're going in on the trajectory that you are in on, good luck to anyone else playing you in the playoffs, because anything can happen, and you've got momentum.
I remember when we sat at the beginning of the season and we were talking about, well, what do we expect? And I was like, well, I thought that the Texas A&M game could be tricky. We were talking about, at that time, a Florida State that hadn't lost in Dublin and were supposedly supposed to be good. Sorry, Gary. They were two games that I was a bit worried about. And then there was, I think we've got USC last. They were like the three games that I had on the horizon that I thought they will probably be the ones that will lose. Now, we beat Texas A&M, which is one of the huge things I have with the touchdown rankings. But other than that, Florida State and the way they're playing, they're not screaming a worry. USC aren't what they were. So there isn't a reason why technically Notre Dame could go the rest of the season unbeaten. I don't expect them to. I think there is a banana skin somewhere, but I think even if you lost another one and end it, you'd probably still do enough to qualify. But I think we have got the potential to go all the way on for the rest of the season.
The only banana skin game is Army. Your other game's Virginia, who you should pummel into a dust.
Yeah.
So
I was
Army's
gonna
probably
say,
the only one.
At the end of the day, with all due respect to Gary, Florida State has more L's than a Welsh village. That's
that Welsh village that nobody else can ever say because it's like a mile long.
That's my wife's party trick, by the way. She can say that. Well, she grew up like 5 minutes away from it, but that's my wife's party trick. She can actually say the name of that the village. But look, Florida State, terrible. Virginia, I would agree. The only real banana skin there is Army, and if they're a ranked team, can you really call that a true banana? It's not a proper banana skin. That's a ranked team that you're playing. USC, maybe I would consider that a banana skin, but that totally depends, and it depends on the position that you're in going into that game. If you're kind of, I don't know whether if you're after a seeding position or what, but yeah, I don't see anything truly there that could. I don't see any reason why you can't go into the playoffs 11-1 on a damn good run of form, continuously getting better. Like all piss taken aside, like that's
Yeah, no, I think there is that chance. I think you just got to keep turning up and keep, And I said this about the NIU game. They went into that game thinking, "Oh, we've got this game." What you could tell just watching it, they expected to just roll NIU, and NIU said, "No, we're not gonna roll over for you." And before they realised, they were in a game and they couldn't get out of the mess they'd put themselves in. So if they go into every game thinking we have to turn up and we have to actually put the effort in, yes, I expect them to win the games. But as soon as they walk into the game thinking, "Yeah, we got this," they're going to come unstuck.
yeah. Sam, speaking of games where teams could or could not come unstuck, we had to worry a little bit last week going into the weekend. Texas, close one.
Yeah,
Did
it
not come
was.
unstuck though.
No, it was a weird game, that one. It was. We just sort of. We kept Vanderbilt at arm's length. That was all we just did. We just kept them far enough away that they couldn't beat us, but not far enough away for us to be comfortable, which was a bit annoying, to be honest. But I think it just showed. I mean, Vanderbilt aren't a bad team, and I think it just showed that they're not a bad team. But we got the job done, and that's all that mattered. It was very much sort of a we need to win this as almost like a recovery from the Georgia game, and just to maintain some stability. But our O line, since that Georgia game, our O line has looked absolutely dreadful, and it looked poor again against Vanderbilt, which is more concerning for when we go into the later game, mainly that last game against Texas A&M. But I think it could be. It's this with the bye week coming this week is probably a massive help for us in terms of sorting out that O line and getting it back to where it was. But yeah, I'm just more annoyed about how the AP top 25 has screwed us over the last week. Given the situations of the teams that had won and lost, but not quite sure how we've managed to go down a spot, given the fact we've beaten a top 20, another ranked team. But
I know I had this, I said this about the rankings last week. I don't think, yeah, they do it. I don't think you should be any lower than third. You can't, that's Oregon are undefeated, deserve to be 1. Georgia
yeah,
beat you, they
100%.
deserve to be 2. You should be 3. There's no reason why you shouldn't be.
I don't get how we've dropped from 5th to 6th because
you
we
didn't
beat
play
Vanderbilt.
Them, did you?
We did. We beat
yeah.
Vanderbilt.
Oh, sorry, you're not
So
playing this week.
we beat the ranked 25 team against Vanderbilt, and Miami beat bloody FSU, who are shite. Like how does that mean that we drop a place if we beat a ranked team? It doesn't make sense to me, that bit. Like, fair enough, they kept us at the same level. You could maybe make an argument the fact that Miami have gone unbeaten so far. Like I can understand it, but to drop us a place, given the fact that we spent most of our first 7 weeks in the top 2, to then drop us down to 6th when we've just beaten a top ranked team after only losing to Georgia, who was 2nd, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, yeah, you can make. I mean, Penn State are 7-0, so you can make an argument for that. Ohio State are 6-1. We've been better than Ohio State all season, yet they're somehow ranked 4th.
I know that's what I said. I would have you ranked. I would have you ranked 3rd, and I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have had you. I wouldn't have had you any lower ever since you lost. Because when you lost to Georgia, the AP rankings dropped you what, 4 places,
4
something like that.
places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have dropped you. 2 to 3, and you wouldn't have gone any lower. Because I think the Texas team has proved that apart from the team that's undefeated and the team that beat you, you're by far and away the third best team in the league. So,
like, I have no qualms with Oregon being first. Like they've been phenomenal and they've been really good. Like, and I can understand Georgia being above us given the fact that they've beaten us. And like I say, I could make an argument that Penn State deserved to be third. They have been very good, but I don't think they're a better team than us generally.
no.
But at the same time, they are technically unbeaten, so you could make an argument for it. The reasoning that they give, well, the reasoning behind us dropping a spot this week makes zero sense to me. And you can't be. It more shows that these AP rankings are a bit. It's all down to personal choice at the end of the day of each of the individual people who are voting, because you can't. I can't fathom how you can beat a top 25 team and a team that have moved above you beat the team that are currently bottom of their conference.
I apologise. I had to go sort out childcare for a minute. I want to get on the top 25 in a minute properly, because we can also go through the UK and Irish one. I want to talk about. I'm going to paraphrase Colston Loveland. Lil bro, stay doing Lil bro things.
Who?
Colston Loveland.
No, who did we play?
Lil bro, stay doing Lil bro things. We'll get on to Michigan beat Michigan State this weekend. Very, very happy with that one. At the beginning of the week, it was put out to me that as an insult that Michigan have the same amount of wins as Michigan State. Can't say that anymore.
I don't know who Michigan. I've never heard of this team. Don't know who they are.
I don't blame you. They have never done anything in their entire history as a school. That was a. Did you stay up and watch this one, Egg? Did anyone stay up and watch this one other than me?
We had our second unofficial bye week. I don't know. I've never watched us play Spy because it's just over and done with before we've even kicked off. But
you see, you'd think that, but that was one of the worst games of football I've ever watched in my life. I cannot lie to you and say that by half time, I thought not only was we were 9-7, but my God, that was awful. That was horrible. It was horrible to watch.
we needed to find a way to grind a win out after the 2 games have gone before it, and we've done that. We're not going to be. It was really important that we did win this game in all seriousness. We've got the win. We now move on. We're on the cusp of bowl eligibility, which I think is the minimum we would have asked for going into this. It wasn't spectacular. We ground a win out. We've got over and done with. It could have been a banana skin. It would have been hell if we'd gone and lost to that lot.
Yeah.
So we've won, but it's not. I'm already looking towards next season, I think, as a Michigan fan, and I don't know about you, Fletch, but it's not. It's the way I'm trying to word it. I'm watching through love. I'm not watching because of enjoyment at the minute. It's like trying to push a sled through jelly at the minute. Trying to watch
I watched because I'm awake. I may as well. That's the only genuinely. I was gonna be very happy to turn it off, but I was like, I'm awake, so.
I mean, you are playing college football without a quarterback.
No, we're playing with anybody that can throw a ball at the minute. We're not fast. Like,
no, but that's what I mean. Is that there's no enjoyment watching a team that doesn't have a quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, and we've gone from the top of the sport, and we knew we were going to take a step back, but it's tough watching at the minute, and it's frustrating because this defense should be is having to carry us, and it's having to carry the team so much that it's actually like now becoming slightly
You
crap.
see,
So it's difficult, but it is what it is. Like you've got to go back to go forward. So
listen, I will say this though. We have found someone who has been a very proficient passer at the 100% pass completion percentage, 100 quarterback rating, 100% pass to touchdown rating. It's almost as good as Jared Goff at the moment. I will say this as well. Shane, it's our running back, who is the only person who's thrown, I think, a decent pass in a Michigan uniform this season. Donovan Edwards with a fantastic 23-yard touchdown to Donovan Edwards.
it's just
Sorry,
something
to Donovan Edwards.
we found something he can do because he can't run with the ball.
No. Well, he has been, he hasn't been great this year. Khalil Mullins has definitely taken on that. He had a bad game as well. I don't want to put too much emphasis on this game. It was a bad game.
Yeah.
And say, but before we get into the top 25s, there is one game that we have to talk about.
Temple.
New Hampshire.
Hang on,
No.
I know, I've got it. We're going to preview Old Dominion versus Appalachian State.
There we go, Appalachian
Yeah!
State. That's who we're talking about. In a minute, though, we're going to talk about how. And bear in mind, I need you to understand that this happened 3 hours after the podcast last week, so I've had to hold this in for a week. Kennesaw State are no longer unbeaten, are no longer winless. They beat Liberty.
That's a fantastic result as well because Liberty,
Liberty.
yeah, we've talked many times about Liberty and how good they are in their division. So of all the teams to beat, it's a way to win.
Yeah. I think when we talk about when Nick talk and we speak about the Notre Dame versus NIU game, we speak maybe again similar to Alabama and Vanderbilt. Is a game where you think Liberty came in, Liberty came in and just felt like, well, this is going to be too easy, and they got shell shocked very early on by a resilient Kennesaw State team who just turned up and were very much up for it when Liberty thought that they could roll it. I'm not actually going to put a lot on this game. I will not throw. I just found it brilliant, and this is for me one of the reasons why. Look, any given Sunday is a thing. Any team can beat any team on any given occasion, and that is. But for me in college football, this happens, and it just feels more special. I don't know if you watch the Carolina Panthers beat the Ravens. I mean, that's nice and all, but it doesn't feel special. Games like this feel special when we watch games like Vandy Bama, when we watch games like NIU Notre Dame. You just feel special.
Will will always beat skill. If
Yeah.
you have an entire team who will do anything, run through a brick wall, have got the will to win, and you're going up, and you can go up against the most skillful team. If they're not committed, then will always beat skill.
And this is why you talk again. If you want to throw it into our kind of football, it's the magic of the cup. When you talk about the FA Cup, and it's those kind of things that you really want out of where these things can truly happen. And I just did think it was fantastic that at the end of the day, Liberty were tipped to potentially, but they were being looked at as potentially going into the top 25. They were being looked at as a potential, especially early this season, they were looked at as a favorite to go into the playoffs as a group of 5 team. There was a lot of things being looked into that. For Kennesaw State to be winless, I just thought it was absolutely incredible. And my wife was very grateful when she found out the score in the morning that I didn't wake her up at 3:30 in the morning when the game was over. And knowing how excited I actually was, because again, I mentioned this to you off the thing. I'm in a Detroit Lions group chat with some guys from all over the states. A few of them live in Georgia. One of them is a stone's throw from Kennesaw State Stadium, and I have watched more Kennesaw State football this week than they have watched in their entire lives. Nobody gives a crap. 3 people, by the way, decided to tell me that they didn't know Kennesaw State existed until I'd mentioned them, which is great. And it's just, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It's interesting to me, just one of those things. But the top 25. Let's have a look at the top 25. And here we go. Where Sam, I know you were getting into this just as I kind of came back. Do we want to go through? I don't think we want to go through the whole top 25. We'll just look at the kind of the big rises and big fallers, and then again, I'll let you get straight back onto where you were at, Sam. The big rises in the AP top 25 this week. Notre Dame have jumped up 4 places to 8th. Texas A&M have jumped up 4 places to 10th. They're the 2 biggest jumpers. The biggest faller was LSU to 16th overall. They fell by 8 places. And then there's a couple of jumps by 2 and 1, etc. But I think there was another 4, a drop by 4. Yeah, 2 drops by 4, Illinois and Missouri. Missouri are very much on the cusp of just about staying in the top 25. Then we are all part of the fantastic UK and Ireland football media top 25 voters. And in theirs this week, we had a couple of, again, not major jumpers, but Texas A&M again jumped up 4 to 9th. Boise State jumped up 4 to 16th. A couple of fallers. Clemson fell by 5 to 13th. And Illinois fell by 5 to 23rd. Sam, I'll let you pick up where you left off before.
I can't get up the UK one, but where have they got Texas in the UK one?
5th.
5th. Okay.
My issue with the UK one is how can Texas A&M at 7-1 be higher than Notre Dame, who are 12th at 7-1 when Notre Dame beat Texas A&M? I'm not gonna. I said this last week, and I probably said it the week before. People can vote for what they want, but if you're going to vote, just put your personal things aside, because in theory, it's quite easy when you apply the rule of, right, okay, they beat them, so they should be higher than them. They both got the same record. It's not a hard thing to do. Other than that, it's fair. But I've said this again. Me and Sam had a chat about it earlier. I said it last week. I don't see why Texas are so low in both rankings. They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'm just for you, Fletch, in terms of what my comment was, is that I don't get how you can have Texas drop a place after beating Vanderbilt, who are a ranked team, and Miami going up a spot when they beat FSU, who are bottom of their conference. I don't understand. I can't get my head around why that is the case. The only argument you could make for it is the fact that Miami are 8-0.
Yeah.
But their only reason that they're 8-0 this going above them is because they beat a team that are so bad that they're not even within. They've already out of the question of whether they can make the, playoffs and all sorts. They're bottom of the conference. It just there's only one team that have beaten us that are in the top. They're in the top 25, and they're second.
Do you know
so? How can we be 6th?
Do you know what college football needs?
Common sense.
The ton of maths that comes with college basketball that I'm about to wade through for the next God knows how many months. I think I wouldn't read too much into it. Michigan didn't make first place until the last week of the season last year, so I would be. It is what it is. I would just take it on the nose and go again.
So
Texas and Oregon are probably going to make the Natty final anyway. So,
So I said this to you in a message on Saturday night. I believe it was in private, as we kind of both lamented our decisions to watch Saturday night's football game.
When I was on my fourth pint of Guinness, sat in a Weatherspoons crying because New Hampshire and Temple were awful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk, and I'm going to sound potentially like a homer, and I don't care. Ohio State pissed me off being there as well. I don't think Ohio State should be ahead of Texas. I don't think. Sorry, go on, Egg.
No, Karen, I've got a point to after you've said that.
I don't think Ohio State should be ahead of Miami. And I am trying to be as objective as I can when I say this. Yes, I get that their only losses to the number one ranked Oregon. I get it. But after I watched them against Nebraska, and that is the third game of theirs I've actually watched this year, they were bad. They did not deserve to win the game. Yes, add the win into account, and this is where I think me and you were going to slightly differ on some of our thought, Nick. Is yes, they won, which counts for something, but how bad they were against that Nebraska side, who were unranked. I'm looking at this top 10, not necessarily in both, by the way, and I think the only reason Ohio State are still sixth and they haven't jumped above Texas is probably where I rank them in my top 25. So you're welcome, Sam. I'm looking at the rest of this top five, and I'm looking at okay, the three above them I agree with. Miami, Texas, I think they're better. I'd even say Tennessee, Notre Dame, I think they're better. The way BYU, Texas A&M, even Clemson and Iowa State and Indiana. Indiana are going to make the bloody Big Ten championship with Penn State. We're probably going to be between Penn State and Oregon, but Indiana have a better chance of making the Big Ten championship than Ohio State, and somehow Ohio State are that far ahead, 9 spaces ahead of them. Makes no sense to me. Indiana have looked like I think I said this in the Hurdle the Line group chat. Indiana are legit. I watched Indiana the last few weeks. Indiana are legit. That defense especially is legit, but their offense is very, very good as well. And I don't see how they're ranked so far behind someone they're currently beaten in the Big Ten. So
it doesn't matter. But also, I'm quite happy for Ohio State to be ranked fourth because nothing will please me more for them to go in as a top 3 ranked team, to not win the Big Ten yet again for the 4th year running, and then to just fall flat on their face in the first round of the playoffs would please me no end. But I also think that the top 25 is going to become less and less relevant as we go along because it's now, when it was 4 teams, it did make sense. Now with 12 teams, it's not, it doesn't match up, does it? Like BYU and Pitt are vastly better than, say, a Texas A&M and an Iowa State. Iowa State's probably an awful example there. Boise, but they're ranked lower. So it's on who your power of your conference as well. But not all conferences are created equal because the Big 12 isn't as good as the Big 10 or the SEC, and the ACC is, as I've said all along, is CAC. So it's I don't, and Boise being the highest ranked top 5 group of 5 team in there infuriates me as well because the Raging Cajuns are playing.
Wanted to make a reference to a Raging Cajuns,
which they played in the Sun Belt, which is arguably a more difficult conference and a lot better this year than it has been previously. You've got Wazoo. I don't know if they're ranked. They're ranked for the first time. They're basically playing in the same conference as Boise, but yet have more wins. So it's
just a shout out to the Raging Cajuns, by the way. Last night I watched a pathetic amount of college football at the moment. It's really quite sad. I watched the Louisiana Raging Cajuns game last night, and I just wanted to say like that was horrendous. What happened just before the end of the first half, and just very, very like that's horrible. It's horrible scenes when a player goes down like that and has to be carted off in that way, and when they spend that long just trying to make sure that they can move the player, it's never nice. Now the gentleman in question was able to fly home last night with the rest of the team, but I just wanted to shout out. And they went and carried on playing the game and won. quite convincingly in the end. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to Raging Cajuns for that one last night, by the way.
Do you know who that was? Because I didn't get the chance to watch the game last
I
night.
can't remember his name because I wasn't listening to the game. I just kind of, it happened and then I think I
Don't
looked away.
suppose you know the position.
He was defensive, I know that. I think he was a defensive back. They did have him up on their socials before.
While you two are looking, I would just like to give a shout out to Slippery Rock, who went up from 15 to 14 in the D2 rankings, and Hope, who also went up a place from 18 to 17 in the D3 rankings. Thank you to ESPN for putting these on there. I didn't know this was a thing. Yeah, Slippery Rock. Let's go Slippery Rock.
Cornerback Keon Martin, by the way. That
Okay.
was his name.
There we go. I've done some filling there for you.
Yeah, thank you.
But no, I think in terms of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns have been brilliant this year.
They have.
I think although they're I suppose my Sunbelt team, they are the team that I suppose follow from that. They're I suppose my secondary team. They have I didn't even consider them for the title just purely because of the fact that they'd been that sort of not the top team, but had been sort of in the next bracket below for a number of years. So I went with, I can't remember who I went with now. I think it was potentially Texas State or Arkansas. But yeah, they're just, I mean, they're the only team that are, I think, unbeaten in the conference games. They're 4-0.
Yeah, they're 4-0. Yeah.
I will say this as well. Their only loss was to Tulane. They beat the mighty Kennesaw State, obviously, who we've just realised are an absolute powerhouse after last week. But someone said this last night, by the way, and I actually fully agree. Why no one is looking at them at the moment properly, as far as very good teams in the group of 5. I don't know. I don't see anybody talking about them. They deserve to be spoken about.
If they beat Arkansas State, obviously they were on a bye this week. But if they've already played against Texas State. If they beat Arkansas State next week, I think you'll probably hear a lot more about them because Arkansas State were one of the other teams, along with Texas State, who were sort of seen as the top 2-3 teams. So if they can, after beating Texas State, if they then go and beat Arkansas, then I think you'll start hearing a lot more about them. I think that's probably the reason why. And you look at the other teams, I think maybe Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina? I think they're the only other team that I think. I mean, if you're looking at, apart from obviously Tulane, that were seen as teams being up and around the top. So maybe that's potentially why. But yeah, I think if they beat Arkansas, I think that'll put them on the map, so to speak.
They've got a win over Wake Forest as well. They've got ULM as well, their last game of the season, who are the other surprise package in the Sunbelt. They've been amazing this year as well. Then they should be being spoke. They should be at least getting votes for the top 25 as well. In my opinion, I think Coastal Carolina fired their coach as well this season.
They did.
I think was that when they lost to Temple. I think they fired him then.
I'd fire my coach too if he lost to Temple.
I would as well. Yeah, I didn't even think you could lose to Temple, to be honest. The Sunbelt has been absolutely crazy because the top three or four teams that were like tipped to do well have all been relatively poor. JMU, Coastal Carolina, and App State were like the ones that were like picked to do really well. They've not been great. So
yeah, just looking forward because I'm aware I'm a bit wary of time. Some games to look forward to this weekend. I'm also a bit wary that Nick's been quiet for a little while, and he always worries me a bit when he's quiet. I'm not gonna lie.
So can I just do one shout out for a group of 5 team before we go? And this is my favorite start of the week. Shout out to the University of Mexico, who managed to rake up a total yardage of 453 on offense this weekend, and scored 6 points.
That is some stat.
What's offense?
That is
What's offense?
Well, I've got to leave it.
And also to Houston as well, who had 6 receivers receive a catch this weekend, even though they only passed the ball 6 times. So that's literally making sure everybody gets a touch. A lot of time for that.
Well, got to also shout out to the defense in those games as well. So,
The defense.
Defense.
So, yeah, any games that you are looking forward to watching this weekend? Any standout games for yourselves that aren't Kennesaw State, Western Kentucky? You can't take that one.
Well,
3v4.
Yeah, I was going to say Ohio State and Penn State has to be the big game. But like I mentioned earlier, I think my Sun Belt winner, winning team, Old Dominion versus your Appalachian State. I've got my eyes on that.
Well, no, does 1-6 Air Force taking on 7-0 Army not take your like? Does that not wet your whistle a little bit?
No.
Air Force have only got 1 passing touchdown all season as well.
It's embarrassing. It's the one place.
The one thing they should be good at is stuff through the air.
Yeah.
The Oregon Michigan game should be pretty good.
No, it shouldn't.
In all fairness, it's quite a. I don't want to. Obviously, there are going to be games in there. I think USC Washington may be a good game, but maybe Texas A&M against South Carolina could be a good game. But I do think it's a bit of a lull week in terms of
SMU, both ranked. That's probably another game.
Yeah, there's
so
there doesn't seem to be many though. Like in terms of those sorts of big games. But
no, I think we've had the best couple of weekends just in terms of like the blockbuster matchups have been until rivalry weekend. We got another complete top 25 matchup though in Pitt SMU.
I just said that.
But no one thought they'd be saying that in preseason.
Yeah.
Why can I not see that game this week?
I'm looking forward to Wyoming against New Mexico at 8:00 UK time because that's going to be like going into a jazz club. You're not quite sure what you're watching and you don't know if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Anything could happen in that. That's going to be great. And also New Hampshire play University of Albany also at 8:00 as well.
To be fair though, when you go to a jazz club, you'd like to you kind of do sit there the whole time. Very similar is probably going to sitting there thinking even the ones that were doing it don't know what they're doing or what's going on or anything. Well, depending on the kind of jazz, at least.
And the Campbell Fighting Camels take on the only university named after a billionaire.
Elon,
yeah. That's at 6 p.m. UK time. Oh,
I'm on fire today. I really am. Brilliant.
And I don't know if this is correct, but apparently Maine are playing Oklahoma. According to this, I don't know if this is ESPN.
Gary's Florida State have got North Carolina this week.
There you
go, Gary.
Maine are playing Oklahoma.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
That could be. So week 10, we could see the biggest upset, not even the biggest upset of the season, when Oklahoma managed to squeeze out a win against Maine.
Yeah.
But I am going to be getting my Black Bears uniform on.
Sam, I will stand for a lot on this podcast, but anybody rooting for Maine is too much. No, I will not have that.
Only because it's Oklahoma.
Come on, I'm gonna say it's Sam's allegiances go a bit further than rooting for Maine, and he's got to root against Oklahoma. That's just the way it's got to be.
It's more anti Oklahoma than it is pro Maine.
One of us is going to be upset next week, aren't they? When do we play?
Maine? I do feel like this is going to be a lot more on you.
23rd of November.
Yeah, it's going to hurt me a lot more if Maine win than it's going to hurt Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fully expect Oklahoma to win that game. So if they don't, it'll just be hilarious.
What are Maine? Maine are currently. It's in. Is it in Maine or is it no? It's in
No, it's
Oklahoma.
not
It's in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Maine are currently 4-4, which is the fashionable thing in the CAA this season.
Let's have a look. I need to know what the lines are for this.
And they've still got to play Bryant and Elon and obviously New Hampshire. So
Yeah, that's rivalry week for us,
So-
New Hampshire, Maine, because we haven't got Dartmouth or UMass this year.
I tell you what, there is a way that you could both walk away happy. Well, I say walk away happy. There isn't. But look, like, play against the spread. Play
what is
against
the
the spread.
spread?
Minus 34.5
Oh, I'm
in
back in
favour of
Maine with that.
Oklahoma.
I'm back in Maine with that. Just purely because Oklahoma will not get 34 points against them because they're trash.
The games on Sky this weekend. I'm just looking and
I thought you were
Sky.
saying the game that Maine at Oklahoma was on Sky. I was like,
Oh
oh.
no. At 4 o'clock, Sky have got Ole Miss at Arkansas.
That might be a good game.
Yeah.
At 7:30, they've got Florida at Georgia.
Ooh.
That Gators, isn't it?
Yeah. And then at 11:30, they got Louisville at Clemson.
That could be a bit of a banana skin for Clemson because Louisville not been.
They haven't been great.
They've not been
Have
great,
not.
but they've not been awful, have they? So they put up a
They're
fight the other
still
week.
they're still 5-3,
Yeah.
Louisville. So they've lost to Notre Dame, SMU, and Miami.
Again, that Notre Dame game, if they put the effort in, if they turned up and played like NIU did the week before, they'd have probably beaten Notre Dame because Notre Dame were having a disaster that week as well.
I mean,
the 3 games that they've lost, they lost by 7 points to you, they lost by 7 points to SMU, and they lost by 7 points to Miami. They've all been within a score of each of those
Yeah.
games.
I said this last week. I think it was last week that we spoke about Louisville, and I said very similar because I tipped them. They were my pick to win the ACC this year, and I think I'd said something relatively similar along the lines of just like they just can't beat good teams. It's just one of those. They're there and thereabouts, but they just can't beat a good team. It's really annoying.
Did we talk about their inconsistency? Was that
We
right?
did.
Yeah. We talked about them, they're turning up and playing well, and then the next game they're turning up and playing terribly, and they're consistently being inconsistent. I think is the way I phrased it.
The wins have come against Austin PA, well, however you bloody hell you pronounce that, Jacksonville State, Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Boston College. Okay, Boston College have been okay. Virginia are 4-2 on the season. No, they're not. But yeah, they're just they beat okay teams and bad teams. They just can't beat good teams. Like I said, but it's a 1-score game every time. It's just that, and the thing is against some of these big teams or some of these good teams is they'll play really well for 2 quarters, or they'll play really well for a quarter, but not a full game. They just can't put a full game together against a good team.
Yeah.
And that's the really frustrating bit, because like I say, I've not necessarily watched a lot of them this year, but I've kept an eye on what they're doing, and it just seems really frustrating.
Did we mention? I know we're just going back a little bit. Did we mention the Sam Houston game from last night? I've only just seen the score. That is, I feel sorry for whoever watched that game.
I had it on.
Yeah, I told you. Pathetic levels here. Pathetic levels.
I had it on the Varsity app when I was driving back from the Exmouth game near Bournemouth, and the other media guy was like, "Why are we listening to this? Like, we've just seen more goals in our game than they've managed to rack up in this entire game." Fletch, I've got a question to ask you, because tomorrow night in D2 and D3, there are 3 games. Which game are you watching?
It depends. Which game are you watching? I don't want us to be watching the same game.
I'm going to watch Slippery Rock because that's my new favourite university in the
Well,
whole
that was the game I was going to watch. Damn it.
Slippery rock.
And on Friday night in D3, we have Assumption against American International.
I see that was the game I was going to watch as well. Damn it. It was 3-2 at halftime that Sam Houston won as well. 3-2 at halftime.
And then there's a touchdown in the third quarter, and then nothing in the second and fourth. It's just awful. I mean, to be fair, both teams only threw for 148 and 146 yards.
Right.
Sounds like Georgia State and Old Dominion again.
Yeah. How rich would you have been if you'd gone back and, like, the start of the season had bet that Sam Houston would be bowl eligible and Florida State wouldn't be? I apologise, Gary, but that's the world we're living in currently.
I will say this as well, though, by the way, that I had all 3 gigs. So I'm very fortunate in the way that I've got it set up here. I've got 1, 2, 3 screens if I include my laptop, which I generally tend to do. I have a little crappy old tablet that I can get some of the stats up on for whatever, and I have my phone. So if I want to, I can get up to 4 games if I really want to at any given time. So I had all 3 games on. And at one point, among all 3 games, it was 3-2 combined. I was very, very grateful for the Louisiana-Texas State game because I could find after about an hour and 20 minutes, I was like, fucking finally a touchdown. Jeez, finally a touchdown.
ESPN have got some breaking news while we've been recording this at 10:19 p.m. UK time, and I feel like this is going to probably come back on me and you, Fletch, based on our past. Coach to player in-game communication that they've got in their helmets now, are not on secure frequencies. A source has told ESPN.
Right. So anyone can tap into those frequencies and hear what's happening.
Texas Tech Athletic Director Kirby Holkert said he raised the issue during a call with Big 12 athletic directors on Tuesday after learning the Red Raiders helmet communications were unencrypted and accessible to anybody with a scanner and knowledge how to locate the frequencies.
So that's how Michigan won all their games last year.
I didn't say that. That wasn't me.
Imagine actually Michigan are actually tuning in the frequencies. Like, we're going to play the long game here. People won't know. We're just going to tune in and then find out what they're going to do and play into that. And then in a couple of years' time, we'll be good again.
Yeah. Fair enough, like that. I mean, with all due respect, it's not like we're fucking winning anymore. So we can't be that good at it.
Connor Stallings doesn't even have to be in the stadium anymore now. It's fine. It's great. He can sit at home and do it.
Sat in his bedroom with a headset on and a ham radio.
And his spreadsheet.
And his spreadsheet. Oh, texting Sharon more. Anyway,
it's Texas Tech have thrown TCU and Baylor under the bus. Come on down. Come join us.
No comment. I have comments, but I'm out, not on here. Well, I'll alienate like 80% of the people who are probably not listening anymore after you segue into D3. But I don't want to alienate them. With that in mind, again, I did say about two weeks ago that I'm conscious of time, and I am genuinely conscious of time. So, with that in mind, it's been an absolute pleasure, gents, to talk college football with you this evening. We will call this a night, and we will see you next week. I don't know why I'm talking. No one's listening. Well, this is done. See you next week.
Bye. Bye.
Well.